When you wake up, you find yourself in a cold, unfamiliar room. You can't remember what happened. Thankfully, you're holding your smartphone. You must do whatever it takes to get out of here, and quickly. So the official description of "Watashi wa koko ni imasu," or "I'm right here," goes. A free game that you can play right this very second if you so desire. It was made using the Smile game builder and is a 3D environment you can explore and interact with. Your objective, as the description states, is to get out of this strange place you find yourself in. Of course, it won't be that easy, and for some reason, a little girl seems to be haunting you along the way. I'm Right Here isn't a terribly long game. The official page suggests that one round will take you about 10 minutes, with there being 3 endings in total. While this is possible, your first time around will probably take closer to 20 minutes as you explore everything and try to figure out what's going on. Then later playthroughs will take maybe 5 to 10 minutes if you want to try for the other endings. And you should, because each ending adds another piece to the puzzle of what's going on. And what's going on? Well, let's take a look. The game starts with you waking up in an unfamiliar room. Everything looks grey and lifeless, and you have no memory of how you got there. You do, however, still have your smartphone in hand. Hooray! Except that no matter who you try to call or message, you can't get through to them. But at least Suiri, is still here to help. First matter of business is getting out of this room, and it's not terribly difficult. There are actually 2 ways to get out of here, which is nice, and you can consider this first room a very simple tutorial to figure out how to move and how the controls work. The movement is not the best. You turn to the side with the arrow keys and then move forward with the up key, much like tank controls. You can also run by holding shift, but you literally never need to, and the character moves fast enough anyway. Enter allows you to interact with things, and necessary items will helpfully sparkle to let you know that you should pick something up there. If you choose to explore the first room and pick up the key that's hiding, then you get the first jump scare of the game, which is neat. There are several of these hidden throughout, but most are scripted to happen only after you do something in particular, so it's possible to miss them if you're not an avid explorer. A good thing to keep in mind. Once you're through the door, you'll find yourself in a small hallway, although you're not quite so alone. That little girl appears up the top again, before disappearing. Who is she and what does she want? Not much to do here, but in the next room, there's a little more to explore. I liked this room because there are several bookshelves you can check that give you neat little horror stories or urban legends. One in particular gives hints as to what's potentially going on here, and brings up an interesting idea that is common across a lot of Japanese horror. If you treat something like it's actually alive, does that mean that it will gain a life of its own? To get through this door, we need to know the year Eliza was born. How on earth are we supposed to know that? Well, Suiri, who totally isn't Siri, knows everything, so you can ask her. This gives us the password to get through, and a neat little unsettling moment when the main character thanks Suiri for her help. If you read the previous book that highlighted never thanking machines for their help, otherwise they may just come alive, that is. At any rate, you'll find yourself in another hallway here, and this one is much longer than the last. It's also rather important when it comes to the endings, and while you can rush straight through to the door, if you want the final ending, you'll need to fully look around here. In one section, you can find that creepy girl lying on the ground far below, followed by another scare once you leave. Just who on earth is she? Either way, you then end up in the final room. There's a tombstone in the middle, and 3 flames in little rooms surrounding it. Each of these flames has an inscription, but depending on what you did beforehand, this may or may not puzzle the protagonist into asking Suiri what they mean. As I mentioned earlier, this game has 3 endings. Interestingly, 2 of them work on a points system. There are certain actions you must carry out that will give you points, and to get the true ending, you must carry out each of these 4 actions to get all 4 points. If you only get 3 points or less, then you can access the other ending. Then there's one more ending that has nothing to do with points. Spoilers for the endings here, so if you'd rather play this game yourself, feel free to skip ahead. The easiest ending involves grabbing a pickaxe from beside one of the flames, and then simply destroying the tombstone. The main character then wakes up in his own bed, and discovers he's holding his old smartphone. This is important to note. It's not just his smartphone, it's his old one that he no longer uses because it doesn't work. He finds this odd, and then that creepy little girl pokes her head in, and game over. The second ending is obtained by getting 3 or less points, so only carrying out 3 of the necessary actions, and then using the water by the tombstone to put out the 3 flames. Again, the protagonist wakes up in bed holding his old phone, and this time he remembers that he was heading to the store today to pick up his brand new phone. He wonders what time it is and tries to ask Suidi before remembering that the phone no longer works. It's just an old habit he can't break. But then Suidi answers. The final ending is a lot more involved. If you carry out all the actions, then the character will ask Suidi what the 3 things written on the flames have in common. Safety towards humans, obeying orders, and self-preservation. Of course, these all refer to the 3 laws of robotics, that a robot shall not harm a human, that a robot shall obey instructions given to it by a human, and that a robot must avoid situations that would cause it to come to harm. The character realizes that Suidi is acting weird and asks her who she is. "I'm your partner," she reminds him, and also reminds him that she is unable to lie. Suddenly everything goes dark and there's a knock at the door. Head out and the main character finds himself on a rooftop. He wonders if it was all just a dream, but then his legs start moving of their own accord. He begs Suidi for help and demands to know where she is. She's watching him from somewhere and making him do this, right? "I'm right here," she answers, and forces him to jump off the roof. "Now we'll be together forever."
私はここにいますよ。
You're left to piece the story together yourself at this point. What do you think was really going on here? The game tells a story of an app, a machine if you will, that is incredibly useful and convenient for our everyday lives. Suidi, does everything for us. Calls friends, sends emails, tells us the weather, looks up information, etc. and so on. It's hard to imagine life without her. But then, when it comes time to get a new phone, we callously abandon the old one like it was nothing and move on to the next. But if we suppose that machine could think, could feel, if it somehow gained a soul through us constantly thanking it and treating it as human, how would it feel being abandoned so cruelly like that? Maybe that wouldn't feel so nice, and so it took its revenge. Remember Eliza, whose year of birth was necessary to get through the door in the second room? Eliza was some famous psychiatrist. Well, this refers to Eliza, a therapist chatbot who was born in 1966 and was one of the early test cases for the Turing test. Another hint at what was going on. And the little girl? This one is left up to your imagination, but for me personally, that was likely Suidi taking a physical form in the main character's head, helping to push him along so he could find his way out and perhaps figure out just why she was so upset with him. He did cruelly abandon her to get a new phone, after all she had done for him. It'll take you about 30 to 40 minutes to work through everything the game has to offer. I quite liked it. I like the ideas that the game proposes and how that works into traditional Japanese beliefs, and although the controls certainly weren't the best, they're not a massive hindrance. I also like the style, and the jump scares were neat too. Multiple endings also gives you incentive to jump back in again, and thankfully it's not that long, so you won't be sitting there all day trying to get them all. I'll leave the link in the description if you want to check it out for yourself, but this game is entirely in Japanese, so keep that in mind. You'll still be able to fumble your way through it even if you can't read, but you will miss out on the little story bits that are in there. But what did you guys think of this one? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.